Good morning and welcome to another Coffee and Christ on a Sunday morning. I am Daniel P. Riley of Whimsyland Literary Coaching and Services, joined by my brothers in Christ, Michael of Life Talks and Jonathan the Wellness Dad. Before we get into this morning's topic, I went down a rabbit hole last night, like I do, and found an interesting bit of context when it comes to the oft discussed idea of swearing and what the Bible says about those who do. That context is the most interesting part. I went and looked through about 7 different chapters written by different people that all had verses, certain scripture about profanity. And the more I read from it, I'm Catholic, so of course I go with the USCCB. The more I read about it, the more I started catching specific phrases. And those specific phrases were things like cursing other people, use your words to lift up. So I started looking into that, and what I recognized and realized and then confirmed going through a bunch of other websites was that I had known this, but it never connected to me. Back in that time, similar to now, the concept of cursing, which is to use swear words, actually came from literal cursing, laying down curses upon other people in anger. So statements like, may you rot in hell, that is a curse. It's not a cuss in the modern vernacular of using a swear word. It is a curse that you levy on another person. And it is profane to do so, meaning that technically it's considered evil for you to lay a curse upon another person. So when the Bible talks about cursing people and how you should not do that, it's saying, in as it says in many other passages, don't let hate and anger lay upon another person. It's not telling you that you can't say the word shit. It is telling you that you should not take the Lord's name in vain. So, damn it is, profane. Therefore, you should not say that ever. But it's not saying you can't use the F word. Interesting little bit of context for you to chew on this Sunday morning while we discuss the mysteries of faith here on the show. Today's topic, I tried to sum up in as few words as possible, but it became more and more difficult the more I thought about it. It was basically glory to God, faith and sown seeds. What that means is we individually, as followers of Christ, as missionaries in our daily lives, may never know the fruits of our labor, especially in the days of the internet. Because right now we're in a self-contained bubble here. Unless you post a comment and talk to us, we don't know that what we say makes an impact, creates a ripple, touches anyone's heart and mind. And yet we show up every other Sunday and continue to do it. And the reason we do that is we have faith in the word of the Lord and what it means to the people that hear it. And the more I thought about it last night, even you watching may not realize until a specific event that God has placed in front of you touches on what we say here that you listen to. So you won't even know the seed's been planted in your mind until it becomes relevant. And it all comes back to faith. That's the crux of everything that we as Christians do in life. Now I'm going to open it up, let Jonathan and Michael get some words in.
Yeah, I think what you started off with, actually, cursing, it plays right into planting of the seeds. Because every single day, we tell our boys, that it's not about only what you say, it's about the way you think and also the way you act. So in our house, we say, Yopinis, act, think, and speak righteously. Or like, we speak good, because I have a 7-year-old. So we're working on the definition of righteous in the house, but it's a big
word for a little mind.
Yeah.
Yep.
But the cursing thing plays really nicely into that, because those are seeds. Like,
yep.
When we're cursing, when we're speaking ill of an individual, those are seeds that we're planting. Now, are they hopeful seeds? No. Are they seeds that God necessarily wants us to plant into individuals? Probably not. I don't know for certain. Not. Most likely not, right? Yeah, but we can't know for 100% fact. But even utilizing like the common or the modern day curse words definitely have a negative connotation and instill a negative feeling into individuals, depending on how they're used. Like, if you stub your toe and you say one, like, that's one thing. But if you're actually cursing at an individual,
I think direction and intention are important, and
that's what I gathered from it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And when I was thinking about this topic last night, I was thinking more so along the lines of, when we plant seeds, it's the whole, are they righteous or are they unrighteous? Like, what seeds are we planting, versus the line of thought that we were having on our conversation yesterday of like, oh, we have to have faith that the seeds that we do plant will eventually come up and it's all in God's hands. It's like, no, every day we have a choice to decide what seeds we plant, and how we act, how we think, and how we speak. So that's kind of where my brain went last night with thinking about this. I was mulling it over doing dishes.
Absolutely. And that's it. The intention behind it is exactly what the scripture was talking about. If you're directing your anger at another person, you're cursing them. You're trying to give them your, for lack of a better term, negativity. And those are sown seeds of evil.
Yeah, I can't remember what who I was listening to or reading, but transducers. So I think we all have, God has instilled in us a powerful ability to transduce the energy around us. So people can come at us with planting negative seeds, and we can actually take that negativity and transduce it into something good.
True.
So like, after hearing that, I'm like, gosh darn it, I'm gonna be a transducer. Like, any sort of negative energy and stuff that comes my way, I'm gonna do my best to transduce that bad boy into positivity, and not Mike, what was it?
Conscious positivity.
Unconscious? There you go.
Conscious positivity. Yeah.
Ignorant positivity. I want to transduce it to conscious positivity, not unconscious positivity.
Yeah, because I don't know. There's something that just sits with me. It's just like, I think what really matters is the health of your heart. Where's your heart postured at? Because let's say, your heart's right, but you're slipping a couple curse words. Like you said, you stubbed your toe. I think there's so much context that plays into it, and I think a lot of people in, let's say, ignorant positivity, or you shouldn't curse as a Christian. It's like there's so many factors that play into it. you know. But I do think that it is an element of it. I think it would be a great discussion. I think we could talk about that for a long time. But I think there is definitely wisdom in being wise with your tongue. You know, where are these curse words coming from? If you're ripping curse words all the time, I think it reveals character. But at the same time, you know, I can see someone like a David Goggins who has influenced me very positively, who is ripping curse words all the time. You know, am I going to attack his character because of that? Absolutely not. But even Goggins could be better. Everyone could be better. There's room for improvement with everyone. But you know, yeah,
And
my
remember,
two
we
cents.
all have that sin that we love, and it belongs to us. Maybe for him, it's cussing.
Yeah, and I
And
could see
carrying
absolutely
boats and logs.
exactly. Could see right past all that, you know. So
Yeah, it's interesting to me because I'm a writer. I love words. I have a vast vocabulary, but yet I definitely lean on what are considered cuss words. And I don't see an issue with the use of the word so much, but I do agree with the intention behind it. I mean, at most, if you follow me on X, occasionally you'll see me refer to people as pudding brains. That's my soft form of
So good though.
the thing I should not do, which is, actually cursing someone. I'm telling people that their brains are too liquefied for them to understand things. It's not right. I do it in my frustration. So I am letting my sin express itself into the world when I do that. But I could just slap a string of actual swear words in the post box and hit the button. Instead, I'm intentionally softening that because I may not be able to stop myself from doing it, but I can try to blunt the impact. That's my
I think
rationale behind it, anyways.
yesterday when we were talking to our other brother Jim, like we were talking about fertile soil, right? And how we were joking, saying how we each had this little tiny spot of fertile soil that finally seeds of Christ landed and took root. And it, Jimmy went as far to say like that little sliver of the cracking between the concrete. That's where his fertile soil was, and
Yep,
it's
the dandelion.
yeah, it's continuing to plant seeds, righteous seeds, with no hope that they will take. But by us just living, speaking, and acting righteously through our lives, like you started it off with, like we never know who we're going to impact. And like it is not our job to transform. It is God. That's all God's doing. God is the transformation agent. We are nothing but conduits to live as best as we can. I pray often. One of my prayers that I say, write down, is that the way we act, speak, and think, when people look at us, they see Jesus through us, because we may be the only Bible that anybody ever reads. Like that's one of my common prayers, and that I pray that we have the wisdom to act that way, because it is rather challenging sometimes, especially when you have pudding brains around.
Yes. And this all came from a deeper discussion that Michael inspired in us yesterday. Got into the root of words like pattern and patriarch and what they mean in context of the sort. I think we started talking about fasting and then it just snowballed into this deeper discussion. Is Michael brought up the word pattern, which by its root has a description of model or example, which is exactly what Jonathan's talking about right now. What we say, what we do in our daily lives sets a precedent that makes us a model and example of a Christian to the rest of the world. Michael's got that face. I think I hope he's found a paradox that we can talk about here.
Paradoxes always come. But it's, yeah, I mean, I heard it originally from Elliot Hulse. He was
That's who it
hosting a
was.
retreat. Yeah, and he, you know, and I know when words are broken down, there's different languages and, you know, all that. And I kind of just take my child mentality towards it, you know, pattern, paternal, father, matrix, matriarchy, you know, these kind of terms which are thrown around. You know, you'll hear things like, yeah, people against the patriarchy. We have to be against the patriarchy. Like, what does that even mean? And I mean, to continue my childlike brain, I think of patriarchy like Simba, you know, like he was the father, right? He's this kind of lost boy, you know, who's held back by Scar, right? And his guilt and shame stop him from taking responsibility, and he kind of neglects that and steps back into it. And I think we need more patriarchs. And this all goes back to the idea of what is that? What is, you know, what patterns are we following? Because there's a lot of patterns that are not good. And who determines, to touch on what Jonathan said, maybe we have that wisdom, you know, to be able, because let's be honest, we have a little bit of putting brains in ourselves. And what we're trying to do is eliminate that through God, trying to understand God. And I think a part of the putting brains in others is to meet them where they're at. If they're cursing, and I think one of the worst things you can do is go up to it and be like, you shouldn't be cursing. That's not Christian. Like, no, you should let them speak.
Throw a Bible at 'em.
Yeah, shaking a finger and meet them where they're at, you know, like Christ did. But then the hard part is, how do we, you know, essentially mold each other? Because you can't control, to your point, where it's
Right.
God who changes people, but we have our part to play where maybe
As examples.
Yeah, and planting that seed, saying, you know,
Yeah.
like, for example, with porn, I won't tell people what to do, but I share my experience, and it's something that's helped. And say, hey, you know what? This is what I did, and this is what worked for me. And that's a seed planted, instead of saying you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that. You know, this was my experience, and this is what I believe to be the right way. But everybody has to walk their own path. And that gives that, hey, you know what? It's kind of, you know, sometimes you have to be harsh, you know, and sometimes you have to push back, but it goes back to that wisdom. If you're harsh at the wrong time, but then even then, you know, at least if you're in the arena, you might make the mistake. There's plenty of times I've been too harsh, or I've been too soft on the other side, and I've learned from it. If I didn't say anything, if I didn't participate, I wouldn't have learned, you know. So the more mistakes you make, you know, oftentimes it brings that wisdom almost quicker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
that
a
quote,
lot
failure
of-
is not futile, it's feedback.
Right. And a lot of the time, the same people who, I'm gonna have to rewind a little bit because we started moving forward, but the same people who, trying to remember what you said exactly to use it as appropriate context, but there's a lot of information that passed. The same people who don't like the patriarchy, you know, the buzzword, down with the patriarchy. To start with, if you break it down into its root word structure, it's just head of household. So down with the patriarchy just means down with authority. It's not specifically aimed at men. That's a smokescreen. It just means nobody can tell me what to do. And those same people also try to dictate, which is to tell us what to do, the way we speak about things. They try to dictate our versions of expression. It's always been that way. Christians have constantly been told, don't talk to people that way. Don't tell me what to do. You can't say I'm doing things wrong. Well, yes, I can. God gave me a mouth to speak and then told me to speak the truth. Gave you a mouth to speak, told you to speak the truth. And I'm trying to help you understand that what's coming out of your mouth is not truth. In this specific instance, I'm not saying you're always wrong. That's what people play. That's another excuse. If you tell someone that they're doing something wrong, it becomes an attack on their character. Well, I'm always wrong. No, just this specific thing you're off about. And that's okay. Because, like Jonathan said, failure is feedback. The Lion King thing, man, I love that one because if you think about it, Scar was incapable of leading the household, but wanted to be the leader of the household. So he destroyed the leader of the household to take his place without the capacity to do so.
Yeah, there's so many things I think about with that movie. I constantly come back to that. It's
Dude, it's one of the solid ones. Like,
I mean,
Disney hit the nail on the head with that one.
yeah, I reflect
it's
on.
kind of a kid's version of Hamlet in most regards. So that's where its root comes from. But yeah, it's a near perfect model for the usurpation of fatherhood, for lack of a better word, because that's the root of patriarch, head of household. It's a perfect or near perfect model of the usurpation of fatherhood. Because even then, that single act of removing the father sent the son all the way out into the wilderness.
Yeah, and I think even giving the devil his due, right? Because I reflect on the name Scar, and he's scarred, and he scars other people, and other people can believe in those scars, right? Like Simba did. Simba believed he was responsible for killing his father, and he held on to that scar, And one of I play with this idea. It's not it's not set in stone, but like with that scar, some people like I look at him with Timon and Pumbaa like going out and smoking pot and like that's like this kind of phase where you're just like, hey, Kuna Matata, kind of relax, no responsibility, no worries, right? And other people with the scar may, hurt other people, or some people just might be lazy in that kind of regard. But, then he's called to confront that scar. So I look at that in a sense like, and how does he confront that scar? He takes responsibility. And
After denying responsibility.
After
I was
denying
going to say, at
Yeah.
first, he did not. At first, right? Nala came to him and pulled the wool off of his eyes and said, hey, this is what's happening back home. We need you. And he's like, nah, you got the wrong guy. Very like Moses type status. And then finally, through lovely Rafiki, he's like, oh, my father is in me. And then boom, triggered. Go save the day.
Yeah, it's a very natural trauma response.
Yeah.
Your first step in any trauma is to try to ignore it. And the second one is to completely deny it. And then you run away from it. And unfortunately, a lot of people, they just keep running.
Yep.
Yeah, and then you play that out in society. and, a society that collectively kicks the can down. I mean, I won't go too deep into politics, but this conversation came up last night. I was having with somebody and talking about United States being the richest country in the world, but my shift was, yeah, but think about how much debt we're in. And then it shifted to, again, not to get too political, but just looking at this point where it's like we've, with the government shutdown, all this, and I'm not saying I have the answer, but if you kick the can down the road, you know, eventually something has to change. And to tie it into what we're talking about, like the longer that you kick that can down the road where you're not addressing the scar, the pain, when you do take it off, it just you're delaying the pain and the pain becomes greater. And that's what
Yes.
happens in a lot of people's lives. If you don't face whatever issue it is, it can be like a mess. You end up in jail or people get hurt or whatever. And I think that a big part of this journey is painful, and how we meet that pain. Because when you're performing surgery, in a sense, spiritual surgery, these are heavy wounds that run deep with a lot of people for different reasons. So you kind of have to have, like Christ did, he had a surgical procedure, where you don't hate the person, but you're looking at that pain that they're identified with or whatever.
The way I look at it is when you face that pain, it opens our heart and unhardens our heart to a point where God, the surgeon, can actually go in and transform or cut out that pain. And the longer we kick the can down the road, to bring it back full circle, imagine the type of seeds that we're planting as we continue to kick that can down the road. That once again, the quote, hurt people, right? Like
True.
the crappy seeds that we're planting time and time again because we're unwilling to look at that person in the mirror and truly face like the scars that are within us.
I don't know that it's always that. I mean,
Not always.
obviously-
Nothing's always, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, misery loves company. And in order for a person to in order for a person to want to drag someone else into misery, they have to recognize that they're also miserable. They may not openly say so because we have two faces, that which we present to the world and that which is inside of us. And you look, if you're self-reflecting, you're looking at the face inside. So miserable people on some level know that they're miserable and they're trying to bring company into that misery with them because nobody likes to be alone. Nobody likes to feel like they're alone.
Jordan Peterson had a thing to tie into that, the misery. I mean, you have to essentially look at it. You have to see it. In other words, where he was talking about the fundamental reality of existence. And then he said it was pain. And essentially, he goes further to say that, you have to essentially look into the abyss. And on the other side of the abyss is love. And I kind of like that, how he said that, because with the ignorant positivity shift into conscious positivity, there's that element of pain, which is first it's conscious. When you see things as they are, it's painful. It's like, wow, not everybody's telling me the truth. Wow, all the things I believed are not true. Wow, I want to go back, into the matrix, right? And but if you stay with it, that's where, I mean, there's countless examples in the Bible that, essentially pain or struggle is a good thing, in an aspect. Not only if you're always struggling, always painful, you have to reevaluate. But there's that element of growth. There's no pain, no gain. you know, there an element of that, you know, because I don't fully subscribe to that, but there's an element that it's pain that it's the ability, and I think faith ties in with that, and wisdom, the ability to see all things working for the good for those who believe in God. It's a very difficult statement, you know, because you can kind of see crash. Somebody breaks their leg. You're like, yeah, it's all things working for the good. You know, it's like, but to truly see that is
Chinese
that
farmer.
like I don't know what could happen. Like the Chinese farmer, you know, I love thinking about that, you know, but you can't, you know, oh yeah, it's all good, you know.
Yeah, but if you're a leaf on the wind, you have no control over where you're
Well,
going.
maybe
Correct. Yeah, like it. And that's the thing. There's that all good mentality. I always think about Matthew McConaughey. All right. Right. But there needs to be a North Star. Like where are we headed? You just can't be floating aimlessly. And we have chosen that our North Star is Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is our North Star. That's where we are pointed. That's how we try to act, how we try to live, how we try to speak. Like that's our North Star. That prevents us from floating aimlessly through this life.
Right. That is our
And
intention.
exactly. That and I pray that daily, moment by moment, that's the posture of our heart. Even though it's hard.
It's not.
Freaking hard.
I'll be the first to admit it's not. I try, but it's not.
Oh, same. Yeah. We all fall. And that's the beautiful thing about Christ doing what he did for us, because man, do we fall. And sometimes we fall real hard. And it's a beautiful thing that we can go to Christ and be like, Father, messed up again.
Yep.
Yep. The same thing. Yep. Same thing I did yesterday. Yeah. Did it again today.
Yep. I just went straight for that light socket with the fork.
Yeah.
That's a fun one because there's what's the saying? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Yeah. Fundamental madness, because that's what everybody does on a daily basis. We repeat the same patterns looking for a different result out of it.
The ones that get me is when they are like, we do the same thing, and if we don't get the result that we want, then we do the blame game. Like, oh, it wasn't us. It wasn't
Somebody
it wasn't
else's
our
fault.
doing. Yeah, it's somebody else's fault.
Yep.
yeah.
But I was having a discussion with somebody yesterday, and it ended up, this is going to dovetail into a clip that Michael brought to the show. So we'll get into the clip before we get deep into the subject, but it brought up a deeper conversation about the purpose of responsibility. So Michael, if you want to cue up your clip, we'll
I got it here.
play that and then we'll get into it real quick.
All right.
All right, here we go. Boom.
Make sure we got audio too.
Let's find out.
It isn't merely that your fate depends
I
on
can
what
hear it.
you get your act together and to what degree you decide that you're going to live out your own genuine being. It isn't only your fate, it's the fate of everyone that you're networked with. And so, you think, well, 7 billion people in the world, and who are you? You're just one little dust mote among that 7 billion. And so it really doesn't matter what you do or don't do, but that's simply not the case. It's the wrong model, because you're at the center of a network. You're a node in a network. Of course, that's even more true now that we have social media. You'll know 1,000 people at least over the course of your life, and they'll know 1,000 people each, and that puts you one person away from 1 million and two persons away from 1 billion. And so that's how you're connected. And the things you do, they're like dropping a stone in a pond. The ripples move outward, and they affect things in ways that you can't fully comprehend. And it means that the things that you do and that you don't do are far more important than you think. And so if you act that way, of course, the terror of realizing that is that it actually starts to matter what you do. And you might say, well, that's better than living a meaningless existence. It's better for it to matter. But I mean, if you really asked yourself, would you be so sure if you had the choice? I can live with no responsibility whatsoever. The price I pay is that nothing matters. Or I can reverse it and everything matters. But I have to take the responsibility that's associated with that. It's not so obvious to me that people would take the meaningful path.
Boom, node in the
Yes.
network.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was, without realizing it, sort of another one of those wonderful God incidences. That was the discussion that I was having with a mutual of mine on X. Was his proposition was that we have to take responsibility for, using Jordan's example, if we are the node, we have to take responsibility for the network that moves out from that node. So everyone around us able to be affected by our actions, we're responsible for. And I think, to me, the more I thought about it, the more I found that slightly erroneous, almost a misinterpretation of what that clip was talking about. It summed it up very well. Responsibility is on us individually. The responsibility is the node itself and the processes that the node performs, not the results of those processes when they reach other nodes. The way Jordan Peterson presented it, everything matters. Yes, that is true. Morning, Justin. Boop. That is true. Everything matters if you're part of a network and you take responsibility for that network. Everything matters. And then that's a hard concept. And he even said it's something that people can't comprehend. You can't comprehend the full impact of your actions on every single thing that you do in a day. It's impossible for the human mind to do. So trying to take responsibility for the results of those actions, the things that the ripple brushes up against, would just be maddening, in my opinion. It would drive you bonkers. And the only thing that you can truly be responsible for is yourself. And if you want to go into the biblical, if you have a family, you are responsible for your spouse and your children. But if you don't have those things, the only thing you are responsible for is you. Christianity is an individual journey that creates a community. Like Jordan was talking about, the individual journey, the actions of the individual node are part of a greater network. But I don't believe that that individual node is responsible for the entirety of the network. With the caveat that if the node isn't doing what it's supposed to do, then it can't be part of the network, obviously. It's broken, therefore it can't transmit to the world around it.
Yeah, I think this is also where the paradox comes in, because on, like, at least when I first, I mean, it helped me continue my YouTube channel, because I was stuck in one sense where it was like, I'm going to save the world. Everything I'm doing, it's
Put your cape
everything
on.
matters. Everything is, I'm responsible for everyone and everything. And then, but the flip side is I'm responsible for nothing, and I don't have to do anything. I can't change anybody. But what really kind of clicked is, like, matter of fact, you're a node. What are you broadcasting? What are you saying? How are you acting? What are you doing? And to your point, like, everyone's not going, you're not going to get the feedback from everybody. you know, you don't know what's going on in their thoughts and all that.
You won't
So
see
that-
the fruits of the sown seeds.
Yeah. And that's where, you know, I think ultimately that's where it led to conviction. And that's where it's like, am I pleasing God? And what does that mean? Right? Like, what does that
Right.
mean? Am I being truthful? Am I in alignment? Like that's what matters. And then, you know, and another thing he also said in another video, which I brought up earlier in this call, is that be where you're at. So I found myself as I'm making content, just being where I'm at, not trying to pretend to be what I want to be. Like I'll speak
Right.
it, but I think that was very helpful too. Because people can sniff that. I can sniff it out. You know, someone who's further along the path will sniff it out from me. So, you know, better to have your feet where they're at, and be wrong on something and be humble. You know, and that's been. But there is the element of courage too. You know, when I made my channel, you know, as all you guys had to struggle with, you had to have courage to say, hey, you know what? I don't really this vaccine thing. I don't really. Well, you're not a doctor. You're not you don't have what gives you the authority, and that's where, you know, the whole thing is, well, what is authority, right? It goes back to this question: what is authority? Who do we obey, and why do we obey them, right?
Even then, it's still a matter of personal responsibility. Regardless of the authority, it's what's best for the individual, not what's best for the possible people that the individual might might act upon. And I say might intentionally because we don't know, unless you spend your entire life in a room alone. Therefore, you don't act upon anyone else ever. There's no way to know what you're going to do. That's what Jordan was talking about. But with the vaccine thing, it's not so much, am I a doctor? No, but I am responsible for myself. And the evidence presented to me makes me believe that this thing is not good for me, the individual. But what they tried to say to us was this thing is good for everyone. Therefore, it must matter to you.
Yeah, it's that
That's
single node
backwards.
being responsible for all the other nodes, which is very ego driven, right? Like
Yeah, it's a
that is
manipulation.
it certainly is, yeah. But the idea that a single node is responsible for all the other nodes, it's like you were saying, Mike, putting your cape on and thinking that everything I do matters, and it does.
That's why
To
it's like
you.
a paradox. And I think it was
most certainly
Nietzsche
is.
who said like the sins of one are the sins of everyone, or something along those lines. That, you know, I'll find it. I'll find it before I get cooked. But essentially he was saying that it's like, at least how I perceived it, it's like the idea of that we are a collective, but we're also individuals. So, you know, you only responsible for yourself, to the point that was just brought up. But in the same way that the ripple effect goes, you know, it ripples. Someone sinning somewhere else can come back to us, and then we adopt that sin, and then it's all interconnected, is what he's saying. So in other words, the opposite view is that, no, their sins don't matter to me. But it's like, you know, kind of in a sense, Martin Luther King's injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. That's how I perceived it.
The context for those things, though, are in the extremities again. You know, that word injustice, it is an extreme word. And what they talk about, from my knowledge of those phrases, they're talking about specific examples of grave act. So something terrible that one person does to another person, again, for whatever reason, then determines that it's always going to be a grave act upon everyone. If you think about that for a moment, at least, you know, I see the lie there, because it's like, for the simplest of terms, racism. If one person believes that a whole group of people are wrong, does that mean that everyone that is even remotely around that one person also thinks that everyone in that group is wrong? No. The concept of collectivity creates a lot of insanity in our social structure. Instead of taking the individual for what they do, the individual criminal for what they do, in the racism category, if that criminal is, say, Hispanic or Black or Asian or white or whatever, one person says, well, then all whites or all Hispanics or all Blacks or whatever are all going to do this thing. That's wrong, fundamentally, because you don't know. You can't make a blanket assumption like that as truth. And to me, that's why Christianity is a strong spirituality, because it focuses on the individual. It keeps the onus on the individual at all times. Even when it says go out and help others, it's not saying you take responsibility for the homeless man on the street. It's just saying, hey, you see him, go help him out for a second. That's the nice thing to do. It's never telling you you have to be responsible for the world, because that drives us crazy. You only take responsibility for yourself. You live the best life that you can. You make the best actions that you can under the grace of God, who has created you and giving you the capacity to act in his name. And if you do that, what harm are you doing to everyone around you? I don't think
None.
there's any. Yeah. I don't
If
believe
you're
there's
truly
any harm.
if you're truly doing it guided by God to glorify him, there is no harm. It might, let me backpedal a little bit. It might hurt some feelings, but actual harm it will not do.
Right.
Because I was just having this conversation last night. The truth hurts sometimes, but it is exactly what we need to hear in order to move forward, to progress. And so in that sense, it will hurt some feelings, but physically hurting someone, it will not do. And going back to the whole node in the network thing, us as a single node, God has given us a job to carry out, and it is our job to carry out that purpose, God's purpose on our life. How and what we do and the feelings that elicit in others, that's not our responsibility. We cannot control how other people feel, because you will go insane. If you try to control how other people feel with every single word that comes out of your mouth and every single act that you do, you will go insane eventually.
I've already been there in
Same.
my youth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I didn't have a fundamental understanding of the truth. And that the brass tacks of that is that I turned my back on it. And when I turned my back on it, I slowly went insane, because instead I put all power and authority in everyone else around me and made those people responsible for me. Which, that's the leaf on the wind thing. If you give all people responsibility for you, then you're moving at their whim, and there are millions of them. But even in a daily case, you interact with roughly 20 to 50 people on a daily basis in some fashion. So if you give authority to 20 to 50 people in a day, you're going in so many directions, it makes your head spin.
Yeah, swapping so many masks, all the
Right.
different masks that you have to put on to make sure
Exactly.
that everyone feels warm and fuzzy inside.
Right.
Yeah, that brings
But-
up your point from the other week.
The masks, man.
Yeah. But we already have two faces. We have the face that people see and the face inside, who we truly are. If you're covering the face that people see with 1,000 masks, nobody can ever see who you truly are. You'll never be able to let that out into the world. If you can make who you see yourself as, your face inside, match or get as close to the face that's presented to the world, then you're in the sweet spot. And that's what Jordan's talking about. You're performing your function as the node, as part of the network. And that's your responsibility. It's not to make the other nodes believe that you are this particular process. It's just to do your process so that the other nodes can do their process.
Yeah, I think
if
about
you don't
it.
do yours, then one of them has to compensate for it.
It's like the spine, right? Like when we are out of alignment, and talking about internal self and external self, when we're out of alignment, when your spine's out of alignment, it hurts. And
A lot of pain.
That's a lot of pain. And how many of us are walking around like that? And the closer we get to aligning it, the better we feel. So if our internal and external selves are in alignment, the most congruent we can get with who God created us to be, it really is the sweet spot. And that's something that I think all three of us strive for, to live like, to where our internal selves, and that's why I love these talks so much, because it really is like our group, it's such a safe spot to like let our internal selves fully out. And I think that's why we feel so good during our talks or even after our talks, because for an hour or two, or sometimes 2.5, like we're in full alignment with who we are, and we're just able to speak from our heart. And that's what I hope anybody and everybody that's listening, like that alignment comes.
It is a beautiful thing. Makes my Saturdays great.
Yeah, likewise. Before we lose John, play the second
Yeah, I got
clip,
about 5
Short-
minutes.
the short one from Jim Brewer.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, Jim.
Oh,
yeah.
Jim.
And she's up.
There it is. Clip number 2.
Sort of statement. It's simple, but it just blew my mind. And it said, one person could change the whole world for a better as long as they don't give a damn who gets that credit. If you just want to sit back, you just want to see things better, and you really can change it for the better, but you don't have to worry about going, so-and-so said that, or so-and-so set that up, or so-and-so did that, because now you're doing it for a different reason.
So yeah.
Bingo. It's a ego versus a humility thing.
Yep.
Like living in full humility and giving glory to God. Like it's so friggin' simple, not easy, right? Like it's so friggin' simple. Like just live right. Ask yourself constantly or frequently, is this bringing me closer or further away from God? Is it bringing you further away from God? Don't do it. If it's bringing you closer to God, keep doing it. Like, I don't know, man. Like we get deep into the weeds sometimes, but I like to bring it back to like the simplest simplest way to live is just that simple question. Further away from God, closer to God. Keep getting
It's
closer to
not
God.
God who complicates our lives.
Yeah.
No.
It's us.
It-
We complicate our own lives. Go ahead, Michael.
Well, the enemy is cunning too, and we have, I remember hearing was the quote, in the age of information, ignorance is a choice. But we now live in an age of massive information. It's very easy to be caught on a few reels, or, i- the standard, like the emotions can sway you. And, that's why I think it's important to continue hammering in on these simple truths. It's very easy to, complicate it. And then, as you said, we make it more complicated than it is. Just keep hammering on these simple, simple truths and just say it, So then when all these complicated thoughts come up, it's like, nope, simple. Like complicate. No, this doesn't have to be complicated. Simple. It's God is God is great. It's just keeping it very, people have said it, keep it simple, stupid, right? Like you said that a bunch, John, right? Like,
I like to say keep it super simple because I don't like the word stupid. Like
I do.
keep it simple, pudding brand.
same acronym. KISS, right? Yes.
Yep.
But keep it super simple.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I will
mostly
say
aimed at myself when I say that.
Yeah.
I
Fair.
have to explain when I say keep it simple, stupid. I'm telling myself that. So I'm recognizing that I'm being an idiot by overcomplicating the thing.
I will say though, sometimes like us diving into the weeds and examining the simple answer from different lenses is super crucial to be able to plant a variety of seeds in individuals or plant a variety of seeds in the world, because how we examine things from the simple perspective might not necessarily click with someone. So being able to examine
In the
it
moment,
from all these different lenses, it just scatters a variety of seeds that, we pray that lands on some fertile soil. And whether it does or not, that's in God's hands. But with that,
Indeed.
I'm out of here, guys. I'm headed to church. Love you guys. Nice
Good
chatting.
man.
See you, brother.
See ya. You can find Jonathan at the _wellness dad on X, since he had to go. If you want to follow him, he's great insights and inspiration, especially if you're looking to train yourself physically. He's always doing these great little clips called Workout in the Word. A couple of verses and then some workout routines that he models for you. It's an absolutely wonderful example. I believe, Michael, you have one more clip. If you want, you and I can get into it.
Yeah, give me a sec to pull it back up. Can outline it. This is maybe this is a clip from Chosen.
Yes.
I'll try to cut it a little bit here because it's a 6-minute scene. Okay.
Yeah, we don't need the whole 6 minutes, but
So I should pretty much get it here. All right.
To me, you weary and heavy laden, I will give you rest. Simon, no. Simon, before us, Simon. Simon, hey, Simon, no, Simon. What are you doing? Simon, Simon, where are you going? What are you doing? Simon, what are you doing? Simon. Do you still have faith? Faith hasn't been my problem. I gave up everything to follow you. But you're healing total strangers. Why do you think I allow trials? I don't know! They prove the genuineness of your faith. They strengthen you. This is strengthening you. And Eden. Keep your eyes on me. Sinking. Lord, save me. I'm sinking. Help me, please!
So I mean, there's a lot there can dive into. I mean, I can go
Perfect example.
real quick as far as how that scene is something that kind of stuck with me from the sense that it's even before that scene, there's a picture with Christ's hand in the water pulling out, right? And I look at that that water can be the world. You get pulled into the world, and instead of, and even before he falls in the water, the one thing saying just focus on me. But it's just like you get up, okay, I'm gonna focus, and then the world does its thing and distractions come and all that. But all we have to do is just follow, as we were just saying before. So instead of focusing on all the crap that's going on, just focus on what's right in front of you, which is even brought up and worry now for tomorrow. Because it's so easy to worry about all the issues you got going on instead of just focusing on what's right in front of you.
Yep. And that's when you fall down, is when you get distracted. But like you saw at the very end there, even after falling into the water, Jesus still reached in to pull him back out. There's always that opportunity. You just have to reach for it. That's the metaphor that's being conveyed there. Because at first he was fine, he was focused on Christ, got distracted, fell into the water, and Jesus still reached in to bring him back up again.
Yeah, and I think that the more we're paradoxically focused on him, those storms will come. The emotions, the past, the enemy will be loud.
Yeah,
And
well, those are the trials.
Yeah. And the reframe there is to say, I'm on the path, instead of saying, oh man, this is getting too hard. It's like, no, I'm on the path. I did a podcast with Akira the Don, and he said, it's like, yeah, it's like when you fight the boss, it gets hard. Like when you go to the next level, it's supposed to be more difficult, and it's something that I've easily forgotten that, oh, this is the moment. This is like when you're on the path. You've been on the path week, 2 weeks. You're on the path. Now here comes the temptation. Here comes, here's some pride. Now you're getting angry. So it affects people differently. Everyone has their different weaknesses. And I think they'll come out as you grow closer.
Definitely. And more often.
Yeah.
We have a concept, and there's a certain truth to it in that if you build a skill, it gets easier to do the skill over time. And you can perform those acts faster. Therefore, it becomes more efficient. But that's the opposite of the way that spirituality works. The better at connecting to God, at following God's path, the more it puts you at odds with the material world, which means that the struggles get greater. It doesn't become easier the more you do it.
I was thinking about Matrix. It's
The
reflecting
movie?
on Cypher. You know,
Oh,
yeah. I have a buddy of mine who we were at a steakhouse and he had a bite of steak and he looked at me. He goes, "Ignorance is bliss," and it was funny. Just me and him had it in that moment. It was well done on his part. But
it's true.
yeah, when you start seeing through the Matrix, you see which I just look at as you see the world for what it is, right? I mean, because you don't hate the world, but you do on it, like in context to God. World comes number 2. This world is ephemeral. It is going to pass. We're going to all get old. Our feelings come and go, and we're called to identify with that which doesn't pass, which is God, which is truth, the logos, what is true today, what is true yesterday, and what is true always. And man, that's hard to put into words. Trying our best to do it here. But some of them are easier than others, right? I mean, the classic ones like treat others as you would like to be treated, even those are kind of getting digested into the body of God, right? Because how do you want to treat other people? You want to just be nice to them? You want to be kind, right? But it's like, no, like Jonathan said with our calls, like, I want to be around people who can light a fire, who can call me out on my BS in a loving way. Because those are people who strengthen you, but do it also kindly. And because just being nice and avoiding confrontation is not the answer, which I believed when I was younger, treat everyone nice is treat others as you would like to be treated. Now, like I would want to be around people who are strengthen me, and the truth strengthens. And as it was also said, the truth hurts, but to be with that pain together, to bear our burdens, to bear each other's burdens. But then, as we dive into it, right, our burdens are individual, that's up to us. It's a decision each of us has to make.
Yes. And there's another aspect of that conversation that I was having about responsibility. To bear another person's burdens is not taking responsibility for them.
Yeah,
It's
like
just-
you said, it's your
it's
wife
just
if you have them or
assistant.
kids.
Yeah. You take
Even they
responsibility
become the adults too. I've had this
Right,
conversation with my dad.
in time, yes. And that's children is a term
Yeah.
for humans who are not ready to survive on their own, to pursue life on their own. And unfortunately, nowadays, slightly controversial take, children tends to also encompass 25-year-olds. But the Bible tells us to bear each other's burdens as a form of aid, not a form of taking responsibility. You can't take responsibility for everyone you see. It's not possible.
Yeah, you can meet them where they're at in order to plant the best seeds you can. But even when you plant the best seeds, it's not that's where the element of faith. You plant the seeds and let it go. If they
Yeah.
take root, great. And it's not you who did it, because it's you don't want to be
There's
attached to other
according to the
people.
Bible, there's nothing wrong with a boast, but it has a caveat to it. That was that scripture you and I were talking about earlier.
Which one?
I'll have to look it back
Yeah.
up. I didn't save it. I was too tired when I finally went to bed at 2:00 in the morning. I forgot to bookmark it, but I'll look it up. I'll share it with you. But it essentially says, you can boast of what you do if it is something that you've done yourself, but you cannot boast over something that was done by other people or with other people. You can't say, if you and I perform an action and we complete it in near perfection, I can't go out to the world and say, I did this. We did this.
Yeah.
But if I do something,
You build a house.
yeah, then I have every right and capacity to say, I built this. There's nothing wrong with that. Unless it's coming from a place of pride. If I look at another person and say, well, I built a house, so I'm better than you. The intention behind it is the point. A good boast is just to say, I did the thing.
I'm proud of building this house versus my house is better than yours.
Yeah. And I can even take it so far as to say, I built this house for the responsibility of my family, my spouse and my children. I built this house for all of us who live within my family structure, for the betterment of them, so that we can continue to do as God has asked us to do in the world. That's the glory to God part. It's often well forgotten, especially in social media with people who don't believe or just feel compelled to rebel against the truth. If you weren't created by God, you would never have done the thing. And the truth is, here's the weird paradox of it. If God is always with us and God is involved in what we do, then we never do anything alone. So technically, we cannot boast. There's the paradox. The Bible tells us it's okay to boast if we are capable of doing the thing on our own, but we are never alone because God is with us. And if everything that we do is acting as a conduit for God, then it is God who gave us the thing to do in the first place. So step one in a good boast is to say glory to God.
Yeah.
For I have built a house for my family. Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. 1 Corinthians 1:31, as let him who boasts boast in the Lord. So if said actions are in alignment with God.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to sit with that one a bit.
Well, it's weird. We'll take it back to Genesis. God created the earth. God created the trees. God created the animals. God created the stone. God created the water. Therefore, all the materials I used to build that house were provided by God. Without those things that God created, I could not build a house, because those things would not exist. Same thing as saying, Michael, you hadn't come up with this particular revelation of enlightenment if I wasn't in the conversation with you. Because what I said brought that inspiration out of you and connected you to that thought. It's weird to think about it that way.
Yeah, it's a whole other 2-hour conversation.
Right? And I love, this is one of the facets of Catholicism that I really enjoy. It's said in some other denominations, mostly in hymn, but it's pretty prevalent in Catholicism. Glory to God in the highest. All things first. from God, because we would not exist without him to do the things in the first place. It's a mind-blowing process to go through. One of my many rabbit holes.
Yeah, I think at least where I'm at is that it has to come through him. So when it's not me, but
It has
God
to
who's
come
working.
from him.
Yeah.
To say through him is that the thing passed through God to you, but through this is word semantics, but through is from point A to point B, and that space between is the through point. If you imagine a tunnel from one town to another, you would be going through that tunnel, but you come from town A, from town A. So God, all things come from God. They move through us. God being the originating point. Similarly, if we're manipulated by the enemy, then the thing comes from the enemy and works through us. Wild.
Yeah, I'll have to fast a little bit more to
Closet
that-
contemplation.
yeah, it's something that I've been actually had a conversation about it in the conversation I was mentioning last night about fasting. I mentioned fasting for about a week. It's like, oh, be careful, and it's like, you know, I don't know. I've just been feeling more and more called to fast. You know, and the reaction that I got from it is just that, you know, I think one of the tools of fasting is recognizing who you are. We are not our body. We have a body. So, and I think that, you know, and there's levels to this, and, you know, I think I definitely can take it to a place of, you know, let's go longer, let's go, you know, like let's lift more weight, let's fast longer, you know, and I'm aware of that. But I also do believe and have recognized when I've fasted that, you know, when hunger comes up, that I'm not the hunger, you know, that's my body,
Correct.
you know, and I just think, talk about planting seeds for whoever's listening, is to just try fasting. You know, it doesn't have to be a week. It doesn't have to be, and it's not something you know, and when I have fasted, I've told people who I'm close with, but you know, the instruction when fasting is to not look like you're fasting. It's hard to do, you know, just like, you know, you show up to a work meeting, you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I've been fasting. No, you don't, you show up, you know, and I highly recommend it. You know, it really, I think, builds resilience, and it reveals who you are.
Like that last clip said, it's one of many trials to strengthen you.
You're not you when you're hungry. That's what the world tells you. You know, Snickers,
you're
right?
hangry. You're hangry. But it's true in a sense, only because our body does have the capacity to override our minds. The physicality of it, the biochemistry. If you don't have a steady flow of nutrients, then parts of your body start to shut down, pathways of your mind decay, and it's same thing with sleep. You, what is it, 12 days you go insane? The pathways of the mind break down so much to a point that after 12 days of no sleep, you're no longer making rational connections between the hemispheres of your brain. So if that's true, if the body has the ability to override our mind, then can the body override our spirit? And I think that's the question that fasting presents.
See for yourself.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I've done fasts for Lent and whatnot, but so I
There's
have
a bunch
seen
of different ones too.
Yeah,
There's so many
I
different
have
ones.
seen it personally. I don't fully grasp the concept behind it. I still don't understand the origin, and that's something for me to figure out, because I have my own way of doing things, to gather as much information as possible and then connect whatever tissue I can together to make it make sense. That's my problem. I have a little bit of doubting Thomas in me, but I think that is the question. If the body can override the mind, can the body override the spirit? And I believe the answer is no. From a biblical standpoint, there is the triune of mind, body, and spirit, but I believe the spirit is not wholly connected to the body. I believe the spirit, in the similar aspect of God, things coming from God moving through us, then perhaps the spirit is where all things come from when it comes to us as individual beings of existence and work through the mind into the body. But if the body is physically incapable of performing the mind's actions, doesn't really have an effect on the spirit.
Well, I mean, from another angle too, just there's also stated health benefits from it as well.
Yeah, well, that's the physical,
Yeah. You know, if someone's maybe not at the spiritual hunger,
It's
even
an
physically,
effective form of weight loss, that's for sure.
weight loss, yeah. Stem cells and growth hormone and it talks about autophagy. Your body essentially eats itself, but it also eats, the crappy cells. This is my science explaining it, but the dormant, because you think about how much junk is out there, things that we put into our body. Had some goldfish last night. I was thinking about that. I might be sitting around for 6 months in a dormant cell. Things like that. So,
That delicious orange dye.
yeah.
Well, we're coming up on the hour and a half mark. I think we can wrap things up here. Michael, where can everybody find you?
Just type in my long, lengthy name on YouTube and you'll find me. Seek and you'll find.
And you should check out some of the talks that he's had on his Life Talk show are really good.
Yeah, and Daniel and I have cut up a couple as well. But yeah, Akira the Don, he's someone that I've done. Yeah, I've had some great people on. I had another guy who was submarine naval officer. So it's kind of
Nice.
cool. Yeah. Like what it's like to be in a submarine for months on end. Thought that was interesting.
That is a
But
wild thought. I've imagined it, but I'm fairly certain the reality it pale like my imagination pales in comparison to the reality of being in a tin can submerged in the deepest depths of the ocean.
yeah, my mind goes to like Crimson Tide and U571. Is it? Yeah, it's not like that, but similar. But yeah, it's definitely shifted. When I first started, Life Talks was just let's talk about life, but it's definitely shifted to Christ. You know, even now, it's just I just see, you know, when you see these signs like coexist, but they're different. You know, they're different religions, and you know, watching people debate these religions, it's really I find myself wanting to do so more, not just to debate, but to really understand, you know, what do we believe and why do we believe it? You know, because I've said before, and I'll make it clear, is that if you can't, if and let me, because I know the conversation we've had too, so let me finish this statement.
Go for it.
If you can't convert somebody, you're not really a Christian. Let me extrapolate. We're called to be fishers of men. So we are called, I believe, to be able to convert somebody. Now, the paradox becomes it's not you doing the converting and you're focused on the individual within yourself. But in the same way that, you know, let's say you're working out. If you're in the gym, I used to be big into the gym, still am, but like as far as corporate gym and helping other people, um, you know, if I went around wagging my tail or wagging my finger at telling people to, oh, you better be healthy, that may not be the approach, but the goal is to get people to be healthy. So, in the same way, to lead people to Christ, if you're not able to convert someone, it might just be the first point that we made earlier that they're not ready, and that's not on you, right? That's a given. But it may also mean that you're not as solid in your faith. So, because I think that ultimately, as a Christian, you should be on fire for Christ, that it's just kind of pouring out of your heart. That's the goal, right? You're so all in on it, right? Revelations 3:16. We're not called to be lukewarm. As someone who's been lukewarm in my life, when you're all in on it, I think you can't help but convert people. But as Jim Brewer said, you're not thinking, "Oh, I converted them." You're not that's not even there. It's you're all in on that. And the reason I say that is, and why I watch these debates, it's like, you know, you look at someone like a Charlie, just he was in that arena, you know, and I look up to him in that sense that, you know, he was debating these ideas. And the only way you're really able to debate those ideas is understand them and to go into them and go into battle. And we're called to be more than conquerors in Christ. We're told we are that. So, you know, and we're in a battlefield of ideas. I mean, just go on Twitter. I mean, Daniel's on Twitter more than me. I have to step into this a little bit more, but I mean, you see these takes on Twitter. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of people who believe in those said takes, which are wrong. But, you know, try to battle them because the enemy lives in people. And I think that it's something that I guess what I'm saying to tie it all together is just if you believe what you believe, act like it and double down, you know, make the mistakes and have the conversations and listen and get engaged more. It's a prescription for myself as well.
Real quick before we close out, how often have you gone fishing?
Not too often. I went a little bit when I was younger with my dad, but not too much.
Same. The reason for that statement, fishers of men. So a fisher if you think about the process of fishing, if you don't go out into the water, are you going to catch a fish? No, because you're not where they are. If you don't use bait, are you going to catch fish? If you don't chum the waters, are you going to catch fish? Probably not. Do you catch fish every time you throw your net or put your line in the water? No. But the more often that you do, the more likely that you will catch fish. So it takes time. Fishermen spent their entire day on the water. And sometimes they brought home 5, sometimes they brought home 50. The point, I believe, of Fishers of Men is having the dedication and perseverance to continue to go out there and put your line in the water, cast your net.
And do you have the self-awareness to know, are you?
And how best to do it. You learn over time where the spots are for where the fish gather, what chum to use, and when to cast your net to increase the probability that you'll catch the most. But even then, there's still a percentage chance of failure. And you're just supposed to go back out in the water and try again. So it is literally the dedication and perseverance to keep fishing, not so much how many you catch.
Yeah,
How
and
many-
everybody.
How many is a material thing. That's what people ask. Well, you went out. How many fish did you catch? That's a people thing. That's not a God thing.
Yeah, and that's the paradox kind of tied into it as well, right? Because it ties into the faith element, the ripples. You don't know how it's going to affect it, but I think there's an element you can go to bed at night knowing I'm all in. I'm pretty confident in my life when I've been all in on my day-to-day ritual and when I haven't. So, I think the same applies to Christ and the word. And, you can reflect on your day and say, when your head goes on the pillow, you'll be like, this was a day that I was all in.
Did I glorify God today? That's my new question. It started with, when I lay my head down, can I look back on my day and say I did the best that I could with what I had? But more and more lately, it becomes, when I lay my head down, did I do as God expected of me to do? Did I glorify God today with my actions, with my interactions, and within myself? We'll see how that works out for me in the end.
Well, I think that at least the truth for me is I haven't in the course of my life. And that really was the conviction as I've gotten older to do that. And that's why I've wrestled with so many different things, is that we're not saved by, because it was like, oh no, I'm so far behind. I got to put out all this content about Christ. And then I caught myself in that, where it's like, no, I'm not saved by my works alone.
Yeah, the content trap.
Yeah. We're saved through faith and his grace. But, slow down, just do the best you can, and it's something you grow into.
Yep. Indeed. Well, that's where we're going to end things today.
Cool music time.
Yeah. I'm Daniel P. Riley of Whimsyland Literary Coaching Services. For those of you that are interested in writing and putting your word out into the world as God has asked you to, feel free to reach out to me on X at Mr. DP Riley. And as the new banner across the bottom says, join in the conversation. If you have questions, leave them in the comments. I look back at the old episodes, and if I see a question, I'll bring it up when we meet again in 2 weeks. Otherwise, like I always end the stream, get thee to church. See you guys.